Welcome to LAB2LIFE, a record of Ghana's scientific progress. This podcast is an initiative of the College of Science KNUST and will be focused on scientists and researchers and the impact they are having on the country and the world as a whole. This is an initiative of the College of Science and is the very first of its kind in the country. We'll not only be focusing on researchers from KNUST, but also researchers in Ghana in general who have done great things for the world. Right. Our very first guest for this episode is Professor Leonard Amekuji. And interestingly, Professor Amekuji has his inaugural professorial lecture coming up on the 3rd of August. So after listening to this podcast, I'm sure you'll be stoked to hear exactly what he's going to say and the combination of all his research work over the past decade.
Today we'll be talking to Professor Leonard Amekuji, who is a professor of atmospheric and climate science in the Department of Meteorology and Climate Science. He hails from Tegbi in the Keita municipality of the Volta region. He obtained his Bachelor's of Science in Physics with Diploma in Education and Master's of Philosophy in Theoretical Physics from the University of Cape Coast and his PhD from the University of Bremen in Germany in the year 2005. After his PhD, he also worked as a postdoctoral research scientist with the Atmospheric Physics and Chemistry Research Group, also in the University of Bremen. Professor Amekuji has supervised over 60 undergraduate research projects, 15 master's theses, and over 16 PhD theses. He has over 90 peer-reviewed publications in highly reputable journals and over 120 conference papers. He's really doing something great. He has contributed to about 10 policy briefs, 6 book chapters, 3 books, and 30 technical reports. Prof. Amekuji has worked extensively with different research projects globally. He's been the PI and co-PI for different projects, including the current one that we are working with, funded by WASCAL through the DAAD Germany government, Ferry Flat project, and then the Concept project. But in total, the projects that he has been his PI on and has been co-PI on has grant amount to over the tune of $20 million. In addition to his excellent work in academia, he is actively engaged in poultry farming and is currently the CEO of Trot's Memo Farms Limited. And he was also recognized as the best poultry farmer at the whole municipality in 2014. So this morning, you know that we are talking to a man who is a man who wears different hats. And I hope that you enjoy this talk with him. Prof, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. We know you're a busy man, so this is a really nice opportunity to talk to you.
You're welcome.
So let's start with you sharing a little bit about your personal journey. Most people wonder how scientists even get interested in science. Is it that you were just a shark from when you were young? How did you get interested in science?
Well, I wouldn't say... From my perspective, I would want to start from my very basics. In fact, I started my primary education from Hobanko RC Boys Primary, left the RC after I briefly went to the Form 1 in the school, and then because my father at the time had gone on retirement, so then I moved on to Oboji LAB. All throughout school, my best subject has been mathematics. And so going to the secondary school, in elementary secondary, those days, I think at Form 3, you have an option to choose subjects from arts, business, and science. And then I opted to really start science. Interest because at the time in the secondary school, because I have a very good handwriting, I used to copy notes for my seniors, and most of these seniors knows that I copy well. Mostly science knows. Sometimes I look at the chemical equations, and these things fascinates me. And I also one time want to really also study science. So that was the initial beginning.
Wow.
And then going forward to the university, I looked at I went into UCC to read physical science. And then in physical science, the lecturers that fascinate me most during the period, because first year you made to take a little bit of physics, chemistry, and also of biology before you do some courses. Those days we call them liberal courses, courses like intellectual functions or African arts and many others, African studies, and so on. And so during those time, the lecturers that I got inspiration from physics lecturers, and so then that moved the path straight to physics. So I never hesitated when I had an option to choose an area to specialize. I immediately went into physics. So that began the journey.
Oh,
thank you.
That's great.
What about any domestic experience that made you choose science or sparked your interest in the field?
There are many of them. There are many of them. I also had opportunity to work after retirement. My dad went completely was into poultry, and so in full time. So I, as a young boy studying, anytime that the veterinary officers come around and then diagnose and learn, so I learned a little bit of how to do basic diagnostics for the birds and so on and so forth. So that's one. There are another very striking situation that came my way. That of course led also later on to atmospheric science. Was when a thunder had struck. We had taken a cover under a shade, and during that period, as there was a heavy downpour, and so a bus stopped, and then a gentleman came out of the bus to also join us to the hideout. Unfortunately, he was struck down by thunder, and we were also amazed. Everybody was looking around, scary. In fact, that keep going through my mind how this can happen and so on. So these are some of the fascinating things as a child, possibly that has really influenced my choice of career in the future.
Well, it's fascinating that you didn't get scared. You didn't get scared when the thunder struck.
Yes, I was scared. All of us, not only me, everybody around was scared. And the interesting thing about thunder strike is that the society believes that thunder strikes it's as a result of the person committing a crime, and therefore the thunder strikes. And so it means that the gods have to be specified in order to really even remove the body from that. Yeah. Just to mention that the thunder strike has nothing to do with gods. That's my later career has explained. And, yeah.
Great. Oh, Prof, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Can you tell us any difficulties or hardship that you encountered during your early years as a scientist or researcher?
Yeah, many years. Again, I'll start from the childhood days. When my dad went on retirement, he had acquired a land far away from town, about 9 kilometers. And so I walked 9 kilometers to school, 9 kilometers back. And this was persistent.
Wow.
And all through, so I was in a midway in my Form 1 education in elementary school. So it made the remaining 3 other years that I walked all through. And of course, and also the other thing was that I lived in this community had completely no light. Mm-hmm. And so there's completely what is used there is a normal light, lantern. Aside lantern, we had a gas light, which occasionally, but the gas light usually gives a lot of heat. And so it's when the gas lights are put outside, and then you sit around to study. However, because it gives so much heat, you can't come close and etc. So those were itself challenge. There were other challenges when during I went into the secondary school. I had a lot of challenge where one time or not, because the school was quite rural, they were not sufficient teachers, and so they were challenged during the preparation stages and so on. Another challenge I can talk about is the BSc project work. During that phase, my project was looking at thermophysical properties of local building material. And then at that stage, I was supposed to work on samples or supposed to work on some samples, specifically asbestos and then bricks, coconut baked bricks and those days. And then it turned out that Sedicom was in charge of these bricks, and so we wrote to them, asked permission, they gave us the authority, and things came later on differently, and that was itself posed a challenge. However, I went through successfully.
So, Prof, can you elaborate a bit more on how you overcame these challenges? Studying by gaslight and all that.
Well, studying by gaslight and then again study with lantern has not been easy, but human beings are born to adapt to their environment. So it's usually some, I believe today some will be learning with other lighting device that might be even worse than the gaslight and then the lantern, but you get adapted to your environment. You don't even know that it's a challenge until later time that you see that this indeed was a difficult time.
Right. Thank you so much, Prof. So, Prof, what led you to the field of climate science? What influenced your choice in going into climate science?
I said earlier already the issue of the thunder strikes.
Yes.
That's one. Then the other issue that happened was that during my BSc and then the master's stage, having studied physics, one thing I was my desire was to really apply physics, and so during the master's phase, the work I was doing, I worked on I looked at hyperfine. Calculating hyperfine constants using density functional theory, and these hyperfine structures are mainly with light molecules that are found in the atmosphere. When reading through my literature, I realized this is I said, wow, this is fascinating. Another issue was when I was training students for National Science and Maths quiz, we come across how to study on. I have to really read very wide in order to prepare these students. So we learn why is the sky blue, why these, and among other things. So my whole mind was just shifting to atmosphere during those time, and I just wanted to be in the atmosphere. Nice. And then when I got opportunity to do that, I really took that opportunity.
Great.
Yeah. So, Prof, it seems like you've picked a lot of inspiration from nature itself, things that have happened around you.
Yes.
Were there any specific individuals apart from the things around nature, like specific individuals who then inspired you or mentored you throughout your career?
Yes, I would say one, my uncle, who was a librarian, that is late now, died only just last year. That's Mr. Edwin Amenuvo. Mr. Edwin Amenuvo was a librarian, and so in his house, during the holidays, what he does is to just gather his children, including his nephew, and I happen to be one of his favorite nephews. He invites me, come and stay around, and willingly even provide almost all textbooks that I have to use to study in science. So then in terms of books, textbooks, that has not been a challenge for me because books were almost every time there. Either you're learning in his house. For his house, when you are there, you can only read the storybooks or do some mathematics or studies. That's all that he likes. So if you are happy to do that, then you are always invited to his house.
But you can't be invited when you are lazy.
And so that's those were some of the inspiration. Currently, I think I have my cousins, possibly, who might also be around during who are his direct children are also making it in their own individual.
That's interesting.
But what about your actual in climate science, for instance, where you went to?
Yes, I have a lot of interest in my own supervisor, Professor John Burrows, Professor North Holtz. We have Snista, and then we have Professor Monica Rind. These were all very seasoned climate scientists. And then we have Professor Kunzi, who is a Nobel Prize winner. Kunzi happens to train my supervisor. And so Kunzi comes, my supervisor invited Kunzi one time, and he gives us a whole interest in the nitrogen radicals in the atmosphere. And in fact, that was one of the fascinating period that of me.
Prof, congrats. Not a lot of people meet Nobel laureates in their lifetime.
Yeah. Yes, of course, I met and worked with a little bit, and even I have opportunity for him somehow interested in, especially my first work, which is the working on nitrogen radicals in space. I think so I have the opportunity to meet Kunzi.
Yeah,
this is interesting stuff.
Let's switch to climate science, which is your field.
Yeah.
So a lot of people in Ghana say, as all this science that you are doing, how is it affecting our life? Prof, your area of research, what exactly are you doing, and how does it affect the life of ordinary Ghanaians who are listening?
Yeah, I think that climate affects climate in general. When you talk of climate, you are looking at studying a long period of times, things that happen around our environment, including looking at the rainfall patterns, temperature. If you look at it, have a statistical average, the information you gather tells you what the future can be. And so climate is all about that. And this affects a lot of sectors, for example, agriculture, energy, so in food security. For example, if we're going to have varying climate and we're going to have a situation where there will not be rainfall, that you realize that there's a big challenge. Where is this rainfall coming from? To all of us, you have to know that rainfall actually there's a process that bring these rains, and one of these process, the rains are mentioned. We are always being fed from water from the oceans. The oceans play a critical role. So it means that we need that. And when there's not sufficient rain, also those of us who depend on hydroelectric power generations, you realize that there's going to be a big challenge. There are other sectors, including even transport. Those transport with river, and then of course even on roads. We in fact need rains. We also sometimes will need a drought periods and so. So climate has so much. It's a multidisciplinary research, a multidisciplinary area that in fact I believe that everybody during sometimes you are doing things either affecting the climate or improving the climate.
Okay, so it seems Prof mentioned his seminal work on predicting weather patterns in Ghana, and I think he should tell us about that.
Yes, very, very important. I do agree.
Yeah, thank you very much. So that paper was we're looking at the work. First, let me look at the motivation of that work. That work was first motivated by an insurance company that asked me a very simple question. So I look at this as for the first time policy, or in other words, the user is now engaging a researcher to do a research. So the user, which is an insurance company, the engagement was this simple. They asked a question: how will the rainfall pattern be in the northern part of Ghana for this particular year? And then when will the rain start? That was a two question that he asked. Then I think through, I said, no, I'll give you an answer in a week. So I thought that I could go to the literature and then just find an answer and then use the literature to update my knowledge. To my surprise, there was no literature on that. So then I now had to do more, look elsewhere and see what others have done. Then I realized that we have a way of really determining the onset, and then also looked at the way to determine how long the season will be, and so then you can do it for that particular case that he was requiring. So I did that, and then after sending the information to the user agent, a second thought came to me. So this work, the hotness. Then I told myself, well, this work I have to expand it, do it for the entire country, and then share this present and then share it in a journal paper. So at the time, there was a conference. That was a Ghana Science Association conference by the Kumasi branch in College of Science. So I sent the abstract of the work, and it was accepted for a talk. So I gave that talk, and everybody was fascinated about that. People from some researchers from CSI, everybody said this was an interesting way, how far we want to. So those were the motivation, and then finally the paper came out. So the paper has been able to predict the onsets for almost every area in Ghana, and not only that, we also be able to tell you when the rain will stop at all times.
Wow.
And so on. So that's the paper, and it turns out to be one of my most cited paper. I currently have over 150 citations.
Wow. Prof, this is really interesting. Prof, we want you to talk about how, people say that science is difficult, climate science is difficult to understand. Do you have any techniques or ways to communicate this to a wider audience, make it more accessible and, if you like, cool for them to understand?
First, let me talk of science. Well, science in general, if you really want to science, you need some fundamental subjects. One of them is mathematics. You can't run away from mathematics. And in fact, the other subjects you can't run away from is chemistry and physics, of course, biology. These are all the basis things that. So when you start those, in any case, you will not like all together. There are times you'll find some more interesting and etc. So these are the starting points. You see, as soon as you have that, and then your thought should also be, how will these be applied? For example, what happen if I want to apply physics, for example, into the atmosphere? In the atmosphere, the entire atmosphere undergoes thermodynamics. All the thermodynamics laws you learn in class can be best applied when it talks about adiabatic equations, and all these are better applied. Or you talked of ideal gas laws. All these gas laws you are learning can best be applied in the atmosphere. And so when it comes to other areas like electromagnetic field theory, when the sun radiation comes out, it's purely electromagnetic. It has a wavelength ranging from gamma to all the way to radio waves. So we can pick that information from it and then look at. And we look at optics. So in general, you realize that these are just fundamental things that when you really, so the climate science just comes as an applied science, just as any of the applications areas that you have. So climate science indeed is an application area for science. So with a good background with mathematics and physics and chemistry in particular, you are good to go.
Right, Prof. Thank you so much. So, Prof, how do you envision the field of science and climate science evolving in Ghana? And how do you believe it is going to impact the country's development in a few years' time? Any hopes, any aspirations of the future of science for Ghana?
There is a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope. We currently we have at every stage. Currently, even if you look at almost all the governments, when they come, they are very much aware that for us to develop rapidly as a nation, we need to really engage in science. Everyone knows. So that's the first case telling us that there is hope. Since we know that, now the next stage is that making science really real, in a sense that you really have to let people look around and so on. In the first case, the syllabus that the government is developing, right from the primary to the university, they are all science-centered. That also is a fact that we are very much, there's so much hope. And in fact, in the studying, there's also a lot of areas people are expanding. Other universities are also adding on into areas of climate science. That means climate science itself have hope. there's going to be a critical mass, and I look forward to see Ghana as a net exporter of science to other countries. That was also one. Science is going to serve as one means of hard foreign currency for the country, because it's going to be an area people train here. Definitely, will know all of them cannot work even in Ghana and move elsewhere to work. I look forward and I know that that's going to be achieved in just in the future. Thank you.
Nice. If you're a scientist, then there's hope for you. Don't give up.
Exactly. Prof, so the next thing we wanted to ask, like finally, let's round up. For people who are interested in climate action or pursuing a career in climate science, what would be your advice to them? What kind of organization should they get involved with? What kind of courses do they do? What should they pursue?
I started earlier to say that climate science is a multidisciplinary science. So to start with, your basis should be physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology. Of course, you can add any other subjects, but the physics, chemistry, mathematics must necessarily be the core subjects. If you do that, you can enter into any of the university that is really currently meteorology and climate science is run in KNUST. That is the pioneer university that started this program. So we are the pioneers, and then we have actually produced a lot of graduates that are scattered across the world. But this program is also now run in UCC and then run in UNEL, and so I think that which is good for the country. So we're going to have a critical mass of climate scientists, and so the country has hope. And then the other thing that I want to say is that whilst we do studying climate, know that you have to apply the very concept you do. What the climate has to do with ocean, has to do with the atmosphere, has to do with the earth surface, and all the biosphere, all things around the earth surface. These are things that constitute climate. So if you want to study climate, it's not necessarily going to the atmosphere alone, but there are other areas that you can go into. For example, into the ocean, which is one area where I know that we are currently lacking, because but there's still hope there, because we have the nautical college. It means that as a country, there will be a situation where partnership and collaborations can help develop the oceanography, which I know that currently is being run in bit in UCC and University of Ghana.
Prof, please finally, can you say something to our ladies who want to pursue climate science or physics, the way you are talking about physics, mathematics, chemistry? The ladies may be thinking, oh, this is a man's field. So can you give a word to the females out there who would also are interested in this and would like to pursue it? Interestingly,
my best climate students I have trained so far are females. Yes, the first person to have a first class in the meteorology and climate science was a female. The second person to have that follow-up was also a female. And so that tells you that it's not only a men's field. Yeah. The females are doing, and there's a lot of opportunities, in particular funding opportunities for ladies to really go into meteorology and climate science. So if you are a lady there who's looking out for opportunity to study in science, meteorology and climate science is one area you should not hide from. Come, and then there's also a lot of job opportunities. We have you can work with the Ghana Meteorological Agency, work in aviation, work in international bodies. It is one of the few programs in the university that is linked up with United Nations body. Meteorology and climate science is linked with the World Meteorological Organization, which is a UN body. That tells you that these has really branches that you can expand into. And so you can come in. The Environmental Protection Agency is also there, and many other agencies. Even in the presidency, they will definitely need a climate scientist, and they will really, and meteorologists who will have to predict daily activities as they move around. And so you really, this will be one area that you really find very interesting, and if you really also enjoy to travel around the world, then know that This is a program that you should study. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Prof, so much. Thank you so much. So the females out there, that was your message from Prof. Come study climate science and you won't regret it. Cyril?
Yeah, so this has been our very first episode of LAB2LIFE, and the wonderful thing is that we've had the very epitome of the title of the podcast,
Yes.
Professor Mekuji, who was inspired by things around him in life, and then moved into the lab to study science, become a climate scientist,
Yes.
and then moved from the lab again back to life by
life.
impacting society and creating knowledge that is now that we are all applying without even knowing.
Yes.
That the way we predict weather around in Ghana is because of some of the work that he has done. We have an excellent lineup of speakers who will be coming after this. So once you've listened to us after this episode, make time again for all the other episodes as we talk to some of the great scientists and what they are doing to impact your life in Ghana. AC, do you have anything?
Yes. And thank you so much, Cyril. Thank you all for tuning in, for listening to us. We hope you picked a word or two there that is going to change your perspective, is going to change your mind, and ultimately change your life. So until we come your way again, it's bye for now.
Bye. Bye.